What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll be diving into 5 decks that are in the standard meta when it comes to performance overall currently in standard, but these decks will be rotated out come in September, so I don't want you guys to go ahead and craft these decks. I'm kind of trying to get ahead of this, so if these are decks you're looking to build in the near future, just note that these decks will rotate out come September, and you'll have to look for either new cards to replace cards that are leaving these decks, or you'll have to completely build a new deck to begin with. With that being said, let's just dive into the decks and let's just talk about them. Alright, so here is the first deck up on the list, and this is going to be Orzov Control. Just to kind of give you a quick note, this is what's left in the deck, what you see above me, and then what is all the way to the side, this is what's going to be leaving the deck and what is going to be needed to be replaced in order to make the deck playable. Now, I'm not saying the deck is going to be completely unplayable. I'm just saying it's losing quite a bit of what makes it, pretty good in the meta as a whole, and these are definitely cards that you're going to have to look to replace if you want to continue playing this deck overall, which definitely means if you're someone who's looking to invest in this style of deck, you may not want to go ahead and do so, as that is quite a bit of currency that you'll have to, recoup and, invest other places. But overall, Orzov Control is one of the decks, as this is kind of one of those decks that benefit from a couple different cards. One of them being using the learn ability, allowing us to go to our learn board and look for particular cards that may, fix our mana, get rid of something that's in our way, or just producing a lot of creatures out on the battlefield, like with the Mascot Expedition, just, once you start getting a bunch of mana. Definitely, those are cards that are definitely going to be noticeable, when you lose your Eye Twitch, you lose your Professor of Symbology. These are cards that you want to hit on curve, so you get those cards that kind of help make up that difference. Another card that the deck loses is going to be Shambling Gas, which makes a great chump blocker in the early game. It's a 1/1 for 1. You can, if it blocks like a 2/2 or something like that, you can then, use its first ability and give target creature -1/-1, which then, doesn't make your opponent want to attack, with a 2/2 against this. The other thing too is it's a ramp card. It, as when it dies, you can also search the body, which you create a treasure token, which allows you to ramp a little bit more in the deck. That is just another couple of the cards that we lose. Another big one is going to be Deadly Dispute. This card's definitely been a strong card, I think, for most decks that run some sort of sacrifice module, that looking to ramp and look to dig a little bit deeper into their deck by sacrificing a creature and drawing 2 cards and then creating a treasure token. For 2 mana, instant speed common, this has definitely been a very good card. Next card up after that is Vanish Reverse, just a great, exile target monocolor permanent. The meta has kind of shifted more into a multicolor meta as a whole, but there are still a lot of cards in the meta that are monocolored initially in multicolored decks, and this has been a good card to kind of, not have a graveyard trigger happen and just completely exile that card from the game completely. Then you got Wolf Spider Queen. This has been another card that has seen a ton of play in most decks that are either sacrifice focused and or like controlling like this that use black mana, as it is a great card, for -3 when it initially comes out. You create 2 spider creature tokens that are 2/1 menaces with reach and menace, which is definitely very good there. You can for 0, draw a card, lose a life, get a little bit additional card draw. And then if you ever get to the -8, which I don't think most people play this for the -8, you get the ultimate ability as well, which is definitely very good there. But, overall, this has been kind of that card that kind of keeps these control decks around, especially the ones that splash black mana. It's just definitely a strong card, and, the impact of losing a card like this will definitely be felt. There is Sorin currently, that could also be a card that you may see in these Orzov decks, but I don't think Sorin's anything close to what this card is, as I do think this card's overall better value for what it does and what it provides to the board state, especially in a control matchup. After that, you got Blood on the Snow. This is yet again another card that works very well with these decks, as you cast it for 6 mana. If you paid snow mana to do so, you can return target creature or planeswalker with mana value X or less based on the snow mana you paid and bring it out onto the battlefield, as well as wiping the board either creature-wise and or planeswalker. This is definitely a card that, gets back maybe a card that you want back from your graveyard to the battlefield, like a Lolth Spider Queen. If you had an Edgar or something like that, and kind of, wipe the board and start fresh in your favor. Yet again, a very strong card for 6 mana. To kind of combat that as well, I will say all the snow mana is going to be gone, as that is a Kaldheim specific mechanic. So all the snow stuff will be gone with that as well. So I know I didn't put the basics for the snow mana here, but those are also things that will be going away. So you'll only be able to use regular plains and swamps in this style of deck. Then we have the creature lands, Cave of the Hive Tyrant. Hive of the Eye Tyrant is one of the lands in this deck, and that's good to be said for most creature lands. I think in the meta currently, I think they all rotate out come September. I don't think we've seen a new creature land creature lands take their place. So all the creature lands will be rotating out. Hive of the Eye Tyrant is kind of like that one that's been really good in decks that splash black, as it kind of exiles a card from a graveyard. So if your opponent tries some sort of way to recur things back from the graveyard, this is definitely one of those ones that kind of eat that creature. I think now we have the only option here if you're looking for a creature that eats things from the graveyard is going to be the 3-drop from Innistrad, and it's gonna, it's that 3-drop vampire or werewolf, I believe. And that's kind of the only thing I can think of that really eats things from the graveyard. But, yet again, a big impact just because creature lands are definitely very good as they kind of get away from global removal unless it's activated as a creature. It sits back as a land most of the time, so definitely one of those cards you'll feel missing once that happens. Then we have the pathways, black-white pathway in this deck specifically. It's a land that kind of, you can choose either side and kind of play it on whatever side you need mana-wise, whether it's a black mana source or white mana source. But pathways have been kind of that dual land that is kind of beneficial for a lot of decks that play multiple colors, as it is a land that comes in a battlefield untap of the chosen color of your choice. Does it produce both mana? No, but it does come out as the mana that you need at the time you play it. So definitely a card that you'll feel the impact a lot, especially in the faster, more aggro decks that play these pathways. You'll definitely feel them a lot more as well. And I kind of touched up on this, but like I said, the snow mana is going to be going away. So the snow dual lands and the snow basics will be going away. So if you're a deck that plays around snow mana, these are lands that will be going away. And like I said, in this deck, this is a very snow focused deck for the most part, using advantage of things like Blood on the Snow based, a spell that, does things based on the snow mana you have. And losing that snow mana and losing those kind of board wipe removals are definitely going to be felt as well. But overall, Orzov Control, he loses almost half the deck in this process. Actually, if you think about it, maybe a little bit more, since like I said, I didn't take away the snow plains and snow swamps in the deck. But overall, this is kind of what's left of the Orzov Control deck. Is it possible that the deck could still survive in some other capacity? It's possible. Maybe it shifts to maybe an Orzov Vampires deck. I'm not really sure. With Edgar Charmed Groom, it's another possibility. But yet again, it's a deck that is going to be shifting around and kind of changing itself up with the change in the meta. So the next deck up here on the list is going to be Mono Red Goblins. This is kind of one of those decks that I felt like had a decent push with the D&D set, as it introduced a bunch of goblins into the meta for it. It is definitely one of those decks that revolves, around goblins, and when you lose goblins in the meta, you definitely feel the impact of those cards that you did lose. The other thing that we lose in this deck is we lose the creature land, the Hobgoblin Bandit, not the Hobgoblin Bandit Lord, Den of the Bugbear, and the Snow Covered Mana, which is definitely also very good for the deck. And I think majority of the goblins that currently exist in Standard are all from the D&D set and earlier, so you'll definitely not have many replacements to kind of remake this deck. So this is definitely a deck that I feel like is going to fall off unless there's a new introduction of goblins in Dominaria. But for right now, from what I know of, it looks like we're kind of shifting away from being a mono red goblin deck to maybe a little bit more of a mono red deck. As we've seen with the Boros aggro deck, there are some other good haste creatures that we could probably replace it and just kind of shift away from being that kind of mono red deck in general. But some of the cards that you'll feel the impact of if you are a mono red goblin player is Fireblade Charger, 1 mana 1/1. As long as it's equipped as haste, but when it dies, it deals damage based on its power to any target. So you block or attack, they chump, and then you also ping the 1 point of damage at their face or another creature that maybe is a token. You got Frostbite here, 1 mana removal spell. It deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If we control 3 or more snow permanents, it deals 3 damage instead. So it's kind of like a lightning bolt for snow mana if we can get the 3 snow lands out on the battlefield, which is definitely possible with the amount of snow lands we do play. Then we have Goblin Javelineer, another card that got introduced with the D&D set. It's a 1 mana 1/1 haster. Whenever Goblin Javelineer becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to target creature blocking it. Yet again, a good aggro card, especially in the early game, as you can play it and immediately attack. And your opponent's probably not going to want to block with a 1/1 or even a 2/2 with this, just because they'll trade either way. Overall, very, very good card that definitely finds a home here in Goblins. Battlecry Goblin is the next one. Yet again, another goblin from the D&D set. For 2 mana, goblins we control get +1/+0 and haste until end of turn, allowing us to attack in immediately. Though most of our goblins do already have haste, just making that much stronger is definitely very good there. And then whenever it attacks, if you attack the creature's total power 6 or greater, we get to create a 1/1 red goblin creature that's also tapped and attacking. So yet again, allows us to get very wide. Overall, very, very strong, good goblin card for this deck. We have Thunder and Rebuke, a 2 mana, deal 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. I think there's some other spot removal spells for 2 mana that we could probably replace this with, but yet again, this is definitely a very strong 2 mana. Here's 4 damage to whatever you want to deal with. I don't know if there's anything that does 4 damage, but there's probably a few options that do 3 damage. But a lot of the times it does hit a lot of things that would be in this, slot. And it's definitely a good spot removal. Then we have Hulk Bugbear, yet again another goblin from the D&D set. The theme, I think, of D&D was to have aspects of D&D, and that's why there's a lot of goblins from it. And Hulk Bugbear is one of them. It's a 3 mana 3/3 haster. Yet again, it's just a solid 3-drop curve hitter for a goblin deck that allows us to kind of get there. Then we have Den of the Bugbear. It's a land that is a 3/2 goblin creature when we tap 4 mana for it, and then we create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking when we attack in with it. Other than that, it's a tap land if we have 2 or more mana, or it produces one red mana and comes in the battlefield untapped if we have 2 or less mana. After that, we have the Hobgoblin Bandit Lord, 3 mana 2/3. It's kind of like our Goblin Bandit Lord. It essentially pumps our team of goblins, giving them all +1/+1. And then for 1 mana and tap, we can deal damage equal to the number of goblins that have entered the battlefield under our control this turn to any target, so either opponent's face or another creature they control. But yet again, a card that will definitely feel the impact with the Goblin deck. And like I said, we look at what is left in the deck. We have, a card from Kamigawa. We have another card from Kamigawa, a Braid, and then we have the Kumuno Face of the Kakazan. So overall, there's not much left of the goblins, and if we do a quick little search here, we just search goblins and filter it real quick, and I'll do this for the other decks too. We hit OK. This is really all that's left, so in all reality, there's not much that's going to be here for goblins come rotation, so it's definitely going to be a deck that will shift away from being goblins and maybe shift to more mono red. But your options are very, very limited. But overall, another deck that will kind of rotate out and kind of, go away for a while until maybe they introduce more goblins. So another deck here that I feel like has gotten a resurgence in popularity based on a new card introduced with Streets of New Capenna is going to be Orzov Angels. Orzov Angels got Gaia, Font of Hope, a 2 mana 2/2, Flying Vigilance. Other angels enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel we already control. It itself is an angel, and we can tap it for produce 1 white mana and spend this mana only to cast an angel spell. But like I said, this is going to be another deck that, you're going to feel the impact of things rotated out, as there is a good chunk of cards that, this deck benefits from that will be leaving the standard because a lot of them come from Kaldheim, and that set will be rotating out as well. One of the cards being Youthful Valkyrie, a 2 mana 1/3 with flyer that enters battlefield. But if we under our control, we get a +1/+1 counter on Youthful Valkyrie for every other angel. So definitely a very big, chunky 2 mana drop. Combine that with Giada, this thing comes out as a 2/4, which is definitely very good. Infernal Grasp is a good spot removal spell. 2 mana, destroy target creature, lose 2 life. Definitely going to be interesting to see where the 2 mana removal spells kind of go when we rotate out, as I think this is probably one of the better ones, and I think a lot of the 2-drop removal does rotate out as well with it. Like I said with the other Orzov deck, Banishment Verse is another card that I think you'll feel the impact in, especially once when we kind of get a little bit more into a limited standard. You'll see a lot more monocolor decks, or a lot of things that play more monocolor creatures pop up, and this is kind of that removal spell that you'll see kind of, you'll be like wishing you had when you kind of get matched up against those deck. We have Righteous Valkyrie. This has been a great angel cleric for either angels or clerics in standard. It's a 3 mana 2/4 flyer that whenever another angel or cleric enters the battlefield in our control, we gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And as long as we have 7 or more life than our starting life total, creatures we control get +2/+2. It's kind of like the finisher of our deck. But overall, very, very strong card for angels that makes them that much more aggressive and allows them to be as good as they are currently in standard. So definitely a card you're going to feel the impact of. You got Legion Angel here, kind of like that card that allows you to kind of refill your hand. Keeping tempo up is, even if you're not drawing more spells, you're at least going to your sideboard, getting more Legion Angels to add to your hand to kind of keep that angel tempo going on. For a 4 mana 4/3 flyer, and allowing us to get more of itself into our hand is definitely very, very good. Yet again, another angel that you'll feel the impact of. You got Fierza's Retribution, a 4 mana saga that creates a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. And then chapter 2, until end of our turn, angels we control gain destroy target creature with power less than the creature's power. And then angels we control gain double strike at the end of turn. Yet again, another way to finish off our opponent as long as we can keep our angels out. Amiria's Call is another card that makes that is also getting cut. It's a 7 mana 4/4 white angel. You create 2 4/4 white angel warrior creature tokens with flying. The secondary ability doesn't really matter because we are playing angels, so the indestructibility we won't get the benefit of. But yet again, another solid land that could be a land or be a spell in the late game, depending on the situation, is going to be a card you're going to miss. And then, like I said in the previous deck, Cave of the Frost Dragon and Hive of the Eye Tyrant, these are both creature lands that we're going to be missing out on. A lot of these decks, benefit from having, creature lands to kind of get that additional damage in, or have a blocker, depending on the situation. Definitely cards that you'll feel the impact when they leave standard. And then we also have the pathways here, yet again. For the more aggro decks, having lands that come into battlefield untap are always a beneficial thing, and having these to kind of be one or the other color is definitely very good there. Sure, this is only a 2-color deck, but yet again, you'll see the impact of when you lose a bunch of these in the 3-color multicolor decks as well. But overall, this is kind of what you're left with. And, same thing like Goblins, there really aren't too many Angels that really will stay around in Standard. There are some, but I don't think they'll be as powerful as the ones we currently have. There's some interesting ones that you could possibly play around with, but yet again, for an overall Angel deck, there's not really too much. Maybe you go the route of Esper, but it's definitely going to be a tough situation if you're an Angel player and looking to kind of keep the deck around and going. This is yet again another tribal deck that will probably leave most other other standard decks until we get more Angels introduced. I kind of feel bad because Giada seems like it's not going to get a ton of play after September, but we'll see what happens. Maybe with Dominaria, we'll see more Angels get introduced. But like I said, this is kind of what you're left with after rotation. So the next deck up on the list is going to be Naya Runes, and just looking at what I currently have before I actually even open the sideboard, this is all you're left with in Naya Runes come rotation. As if we look at the sideboard, this is what you're losing, and essentially you're losing multiple copies of all these cards, and that's why it feels like you're almost completely gutted. Now, the one benefit I think to Naya Runes compared to the other decks of this list is that you can always shift away from Naya Runes and maybe shift towards the Selesnya Enchantments deck, which is still another deck that's definitely still pretty good and doesn't lose as many different things. But overall, because this is Naya Runes and all the runes are also from Kaldheim, along with the Runeforge Champion, you're going to lose out on all those cards. So essentially, Naya Runes won't be a thing. It'll be just some sort of enchantment deck if you're going to still continue to play. But you lose all your runes. So you lose your life gain rune, your haste rune, and your might rune that gives trample. You lose the Runeforge Champion, which is the guy who searches your library or graveyard for a rune and adds it to your hand, also making them cheap, making you pay 1 instead of paying their actual cost. You lose Showdown of the Skull. It's kind of like a tempo card here. Exiles top 4, gives you hopefully more playables, as well as you lose all your pathways. So you lose your red-white, you lose your green-white, you lose your creature lands, you lose your red-green pathway, and then this is what you're left with. So yet again, it's a good deck, but it's also one of those decks that I feel like people dislike, and thankfully it didn't stick around too long in Standard before it rotates out. Though we will see with rotation whether or not the Selesnya version will be a version to kind of mess around with. But like I said, this is a good deck. It's going to be definitely impacted of what you're losing, and this is kind of like a good example of these 3-color decks that take advantage of using pathway lands, and you'll see the impact of the mana base as there was only 9 basics in the whole deck compared to what was kind of removed out from there, as there were 4 copies of each of the pathways and a couple copies I think there was only a single copy of each creature land, as the game benefits from also having the runes on them. But overall, a deck that is completely gutted, and there's not really too much left after rotation happens. Now, the last deck up here on the list is going to be Mono White Aggro. I think comparatively, out of all the other decks, this is also one doesn't feel like one that you lose a lot of, but I think you lose a lot of what makes this deck very good on the play. Definitely very good in best of 1. You lose a lot of cards that help the curve overall, and being aggressive against your opponent. You look at the deck list and it still looks pretty good, and there are probably some other mono white cards that come in, but I do think there's some benefits of the cards that we're losing in this deck that will kind of you'll see the impact of if you continue to try to play mono white in the near future. One of the cards being Usher of the Fallen, 1 mana uncommon with the boast ability that you can tap 2 mana if you have 2 mana open and create a warrior creature token, just helping you get wide against your opponent, but still a 1 mana 2/1 is still very good. You got Luminarch Aspirant, the card that is kind of been one of those cards that's been a staple of any white deck in Standard. At the beginning of your combat, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature control. Itself is a 1/1. This is a card that's been very good in Boros Aggro, and other, like Naya Humans and things like that. So this is going to be a card you'll see, feel probably the biggest impact in a lot of those decks that splash white or play white in that regard. But yet again, a card that is going to be kind of impactful to lose in a mono white deck. And you got, the 3 mana, 3/1 Elite Spellbinder, a 3/1 flyer that when it comes in the battlefield, you look at your opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it. As long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to play. Yet again, a card that disrupts your opponent's curve. Maybe, you're going back and forth. They're going to play their 3-drop. You're on the play, but so you go first. And all of a sudden you cast this and it kind of ruins their turn 3, which makes them have to rethink what they're going to do. So Elite Spellbinder is another card that, yet again, you'll see the impact of, especially in these mono white decks or decks that play, Elite Spellbinder. Then you have Redain, God of the Worthy, a 3-mana 2/3 flyer vigilance. No lands enter battlefield tapped. Not the biggest of deals, as with Faceless Haven being banned, people kind of gone away from Snowlands, so there's not as much of an impact there. And then non-creature spells your opponents cast with mana value 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. This is probably the biggest reason why Mono White's been as good as it has, because this card kind of taxes a lot of your control decks or board removal spells, making them cost more, like Immediate Massacre. If you just wanted to do for 2, cost 6. Things like that, and this card has definitely been very good for that. Also, the other side too is also very good here. The 4 mana, you get Legendary Artifact that whenever you would deal damage to, whenever a source of opponent control will deal damage to a permanent or to yourself, you prevent 1 of that damage. And then whenever 1 or more permanents you control become targeted a spell or ability, your opponent has to pay an additional 1 unless they or counter it. So definitely like a ward of 1 built into this shield. But yet again, another card that you kind of will feel the impact of, especially in a mono white aggro deck, as this is going to kind of allow these control decks to kind of keep up or hopefully not fall behind too quickly. Legion Angel, yet again, hits in the mono white deck, 4 mana play card that allows you to kind of keep your hand tempo going, keeping threats happening out in the battlefield, getting more copies from your sideboard, and even if your opponent wipes the board, you'll hopefully have another one to play again. Then you also have your creature lands, yet again, definitely lands that feel pretty impactful in this mono white deck. They're not Faceless Havens, but they've been definitely decent replacements since Faceless Haven's been banned. But overall, definitely very good in that sense. Cave of the Frost Dragon, 3/4 flyer, 3/4 flyer until end of turn, and then also Crawl and Baron's land you can dump 4 mana into, give it 2+1/+1 counters, and then choose whether or not you want it to be a land. And definitely a good way to finish off your opponent. Gets these are cards that you can kind of put mana into and then kind of play around some board removal, as these will be ways to kind of finish off your opponent if they don't remove them with spot removal. But yet again, there is still a decent base here. I don't know if the base is as good as it once was. Mono white is definitely in a better position than the other monocolor decks I went over. If we kind of do this real quick, there are other options, but are they as good? I'm not sure. Do you kind of go the route of playing like modified mono white or something like that? We'll have to wait and see what comes with the new set come September, what it's going to introduce to like these monocolored decks. If they're going to be replacements for cards we're losing, that will feel okay, or will other decks that kind of don't lose as much still be pretty prominent? I guess once the 2023 standard pops up, we'll be able to test it out and kind of see what's happening even before Dominaria releases. But if you guys are concerned or play any of these decks, let me know in the comments below. If you want me to do more videos looking into decks that will be rotating out come September, let me know in the comments below. I'll definitely dig into more of these videos so you guys are prepared and not going to be creating decks that are going to be rotating out. And if you like the video, hit that like button. If you're new here, you want to know I post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Just want to give a special shout out to the channel members here on my YouTube channel. You can also become a channel member yourself down below the video, hitting that join button. It definitely helps out a lot, and I just appreciate you guys for your support.